department store. My grandmother worked in the department store with my grandfather. I wondered, no one had a grandmother who couldn't cook. My grandmother couldn't, because she was at the store. And as my father told it, as a little boy, he would see the army put stakes down with big loaves of bread on top of it. They would get on their horses with their swords and practice that they were lopping off heads. And when they first came to Canada, when they saw snow, they thought someone spilled sugar in the streets. Well, anyway, Tolstoy was the Governor General. And when Tolstoy died, the Jews lost their rights. They would have to convert, and they would have to send their boys into the army. So Grandpa decided that was not for him. And he migrated to Canada because he had cousins, the Rubens, with him. He came with the 3 older boys, then sent for my grandmother with the 3 younger ones. And Aunt Edith is the only one that was born here in Canada. And when he came, they had made the fur hats for the army. So he went into the fur business. And he used to take my father up north to buy the skins from the Indians. And they would buy the damaged skins for less money, come home and sit on the floor in the living room and repair them. And my father told stories about the Hudson Bay Company was really ripping off the Indians. And my father taught them with kernels of corn how to count how many beaver skins they were selling and what they should get in recompense. And it was quite an adventure. He said in the mornings they would go out and split the ice. The water was collected in barrels from the rain. With their elbows they break the ice, throw the water on themselves, and then go in and have the big steak and potato. And they took him out one day and pointed out a little sapling and gave him an axe and said, "Cut that down." He thought, oh, of course they can do. It was an ironwood tree, and the ox kept bouncing. Anyway, when they came here, they started, they had 6 of the children here. And Grandpa, my grandfather, was very stern. He kept all of the family together. There was a camaraderie that he saw to it, that they felt for one another. They had a great sense of humor. They had a marvelous time together. And just as an example, well, the first thing he did was buy property, because you couldn't go with property if you were a Jew. So he bought the houses on Heaney Street and Coburg and on Rito, where he had the fur store. And as I say, that's when he went to the fur business, because he had done the hats for the Cossacks. And I remember Grandma telling me she sent him around to collect rent from the French Canadians on Coburg. And he came back and she said, "Did you get it?" He said, "Well, they didn't have enough money for wood for the stoves. I gave them money for the wood." You would never think that of him, because he was very, very stern. And he had meetings with his sons and daughter. No spouses allowed. Absolutely no spouses, because every spouse wanted to go for their particular husband, or in this case, the wives wanted, or Edith's husband. So he was, I don't know how to say it, but as stern as he was, he had a very soft side which he never showed to them. They were quite amazed to see him rolling on the floor, trying to amuse me as a child. My father thought he had a heart attack, because he'd never seen him that playful. He used to take my brother out for Frankfurters without telling my mother, and she'd wonder when he visited us why they never were hungry for dinner. These were things they never expected of him. And Grandma, we always thought, was the soft, sweet one. She was quite strong. Debts that he couldn't collect from people that owed him money, she went out and collected it. And there was a rather big family that we didn't know about. And And somehow as youngsters we learned it. I know one of the Reuben boys, my grandfather, when he went to New York, he said, I have a half-brother, Yale Molot, in New York. So young Mr. Reuben went to New York and he went to the Lower East Side in those days because that's where you met all the Jewish population. And he's walking with a friend, and this friend stops to speak to a friend he knows. And this friend he knows is walking with someone, and the young Mr. Reuben says, you know, my dad's cousin told me to look up his brother, Yale Molot, in New York. He said, what do I look up? Number one, New York? Well, the chap that was walking with Reuben's friend was Yale Molot. So we know he had a half-brother here. We know that Grandma had a brother John. The only way we know it, when Mark was growing up and he was tall, she'd say, I had a brother John who was tall. So we knew there was a brother John somewhere. There was an aunt that was with them in Turkestan who was a commissar in China. They adored her. One day on one of her trips, she disappeared. They never knew whether somebody was in the job or whatever happened. She just disappeared from the picture. Now, Grandma had two sisters in Baltimore, Bella and Eva. And out of one of them, one of the grandchildren is Harriet Silver, who some of us know. And there was Aunt Fanny, who was in Ottawa. And there was an Aunt Esther, who was in New York. And that's a very interesting background.
So wait, Grandpa.
And now we have...
Grandpa, was his father remarried?
I don't know, but assuming if his half-brother was Molot, he must have been.
He remarried. His great-grandma died.
Well, all I know is he was an orphan. That's what I was told, that our grandpa was an orphan when he got married. And his grandma's great-grandmother was a Playansky. And our grandmother was a first cousin of one of the Playansky children, and they were very close. And the Playanskys were in New York. And my father went to visit these cousins, Playansky, and my mother was living with them. She had been orphaned, and her mother had said, would you take my daughter, because she had 3 daughters. So these were cousins of my father's, who, for me and my brother, we always called them Grandma and Grandpa, and the 3 daughters of theirs we called aunts. But why we never asked for the background, why we never asked what happened to the aunt who disappeared, what happened to your brother John. We were just so secure. We had the grandparents, we had all our uncles and the aunt, and we were all very close. When there was a family affair and we got together, we sort of picked up where we left off. And it was a very good and nice story. But now my nephew wants to do a family tree. And now I have met Ross and Ross's children, and Jody and Jody's children.
Go. Whatever it takes.
It's amazing. It's amazing how the family has matured. And there's some in Ottawa, there's one in Montreal, there's a couple in Toronto, there are some in Wisconsin, Rhode Island, Hamilton, and Henry's daughter is temporarily in Seattle, Washington.
In New Jersey.
All right, New Jersey. Yeah.